everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Sorry for the sun shining through the window here on this beautiful midday Monday. Where you are determines what time it is, but it is midday no matter where you are, unless you're watching from Alaska or Hawaii. But I wanted to jump on here and talk some wrestling. Don't worry, for all you football fans out there, I'll be back later on tonight. I'm going to do two videos today. The one I'm going to do tonight is going to be about football. But today I want to talk some wrestling in this video. Hey there, Kevron. Glad to have you here. Come back tonight when we're going to talk some college football, Kevron. Hey there, Austin. You're going to like this video because I'm going to talk some NXT. I want to talk about NXT's premium live event deadline that took place Saturday night at the Minneapolis Armory in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Again, don't worry, I'm doing two videos today. I'll be back tonight discussing some football. There's a lot going on right now in the football world, so it's hard to not talk football this time of the year, but I cannot neglect wrestling. So I want to talk some NXT. But first, I want to remind everybody that is in North Georgia, Northeast Georgia, or the upstate of South Carolina that coming up Saturday night, I'll be back at 244 Livestock Road, Easton Nolly, Georgia, for the annual SWA Toys for Tots show. Now, this is a show where the matches really don't matter, but I will tell you that, as always, Tower will be in the house. Luke Da Silva will be in the house. Jimmy Lee will be there as well. Rushy Miller will be there. Dynamic Dexter will be there. Drox will be there. Eric Thunder will be there. Brent Hudson will be there. The usual suspects. But all that doesn't matter this week because it is the annual SWA Toys for Tots show. Hey there, Mees. Glad to have you here. Hopefully, all of you watching have given the video a like and a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. It takes about 2 seconds and it's free and it helps the channel out tremendously. But it's the annual SWA Toys for Tots show. So this show, if you bring a unwrapped toy for a needy child for this Christmas season, that will be your entrance into the show. Whether it's a $5 toy or a $100 toy, it doesn't matter. If you bring an unwrapped toy to give to the SWA owner for a needy child this Christmas season, that'll be your entrance into the show. So your ticket will be free as long as you bring an unwrapped toy. And no, Mees, I hope you're joking. If not, I do not know that YouTuber, but this day and time that might be legit. But if so, I don't know who that is. So I'll be back Saturday night, 244 Livestock Road, Easton Nolly, Georgia, for the annual SWA Toys for Tots show. Bring an unwrapped toy and get in for free. But on to NXT deadline. For those of you that follow the channel, you know that I'm a huge fan of NXT. I like NXT better than Raw. I like it better than SmackDown. And of course, it's way better than AEW. OVW is better than AEW. But Saturday night, we saw Oba Femi defeat Wes Lee, Javon Evans, Nathan Fraser, and Ethan Page to become the men's Iron Survivor. Now, it was supposed to be Wes Lee, Javon Evans, Nathan Fraser, Ethan Page, and Eddie Thorpe. But WWE came out Saturday afternoon and said that Eddie Thorpe could not compete and would be replaced. And as soon as I saw that, I said, that's Oba Femi. He's been off TV for about a month or so, and everybody in WWE is very, very high on Obafemi, so they had to find a way to write him back in the storylines. This was the way he returns and wins the men's Iron Survivor match. So he will face the NXT champion, which right now is Trick Williams, at the next NXT Premium Live event. Hey there, Philip. Glad to have you here. But Obafemi is big, but that walk he does, if you ain't watched, he walks like this. And something about that walk just irritates me. And if you follow the channel, you know that sometimes the smallest things will irritate the mess out of me. This is one of those times. That way that Obafemi walks just drives me absolutely up the wall. But he is a great wrestler, and he is a big dude as well. Then the second match, Lola Vice beat Jada Parker in an NXT Underground match. Lola Vice had a NXT Underground match against Shayna Baszler. Hey there, Haboon. Glad to have you here. About 3 months ago, I think it was. But Underground used to be on Raw every week. They had an Underground match for a few months. They realized it was a terrible idea. They stopped doing it. Now they brought it back for NXT, but it's not a weekly thing, not even a monthly thing. But to do it every once in a while is okay, especially when Lola Vice is supposed to have a boxing background, so it makes more sense when she does it. But any match that Jada Parker is in is a good match. She is a great wrestler, and I think she has a bright, bright future. Nathan Frazer and Axiom defeat No Quarter Catch Crew members Miles Bourne and Tavian Heights to retain the NXT Tag Team Championships. Trick Williams retains the NXT Championship by defeating Ridge Holland. And the main event was the women's Iron Survivor match. I'm sure they probably duped everybody on that one because everybody either assumed that the men's Iron Survivor or the men's NXT Championship match would be the main event, but it wasn't. It was the women's Iron Survivor match. And Julia wins that by defeating Soul, Ruka, Stephanie Vakir, Zarya, and Ren Sinclair to become the women's Iron Survivor. So right now, Julia is in line to wrestle the NXT Women's Champion at the next NXT Premium Live event. And if you're not watching NXT, you really need to start watching it because there's some great talent there. And honestly, the talent at NXT is so good, I no longer call it a developmental brand. As a matter of fact, WWE has stopped calling it a developmental brand. It's its own separate show now. I know some of the wrestlers still get caught up to Raw or SmackDown. That's fine. But it used to be the NXT had, 8 or 9 really good wrestlers, and the rest of them were just average. Now, top to bottom for the men and the women, NXT is full of great talent that'll eventually either be on Raw or SmackDown. And if not, NXT is good enough. They don't have to be. Hey there, Rohit. I'm assuming you must like Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and Randy Orton. So you're a wrestling fan, so I'm glad you are here. So if you're not watching NXT, start watching it. It's great. And plus, there's a rumor going around now that WWE might be having another draft coming up shortly after the first of the year. They have not announced it yet. Hey there, Jordan. Glad to have you here. They have not announced it yet, but it's a big rumor because with Raw switching networks next month, supposedly WWE wants to kind of rebrand all the shows and change up some of the superstars. I agree with you, Jordan. NXT is great. And if they do that, you'll probably see some more NXT people get called up to the main roster, whether it be Raw or SmackDown. So you need to go ahead and start watching NXT so that if they have another draft and if any NXT folks get caught up, you will know who they are. because there are some good ones. And yes, Austin, I did watch 205 Live about once and I was done with it. I've never been a big fan of the cruiserweight slash 205 slash flippy floppy stuff. I'm an old school wrestling fan that I just want to watch people go in the ring and wrestle. And that's why I like to watch Gunther wrestle so much. I'm not into all the flips, all the hoopla, all the moonsaults, all that high flying. I don't need that. Just go out there, get in the ring, and wrestle. That's all I need. If you've got to be flashy to get the crowd's attention, then you suck as a wrestler. If you can't just go out there and wrestle, which by the way is what you're supposed to be doing, then in my opinion, you're not good enough as a wrestler. That's just my opinion. So I did watch NXT live, 205 live when it came on a couple of times just to see what it was all about, but I stopped. And when WCW had their big cruiserweight thing years ago, I never was too into that. I just want guys like Gunther. Go out there, get in the ring, ring the bell, and wrestle. I don't need weapons. I don't need flippy floppy stuff. Just go out there and wrestle. And Rohit, you are an old school WWE fan. I'm an old school fan of wrestling in general, not necessarily WWE, but when I get free time, which is not very much, when I do get free time, I can get on TV and go watch old WCW stuff, old WWE stuff, NWA, AWA, Mid South, any of that. 70s, 80s, early to mid 90s in any company is what I'm a huge fan of. I love old school wrestling. Back when you didn't need all the weapons and you didn't need all the flips to entertain you. Just got in the ring and you wrestled. And a lot of folks don't know that in the wrestling business, you're supposed to just wrestle. And yes, Rohit, there have been many, many, many real fights. You could actually get on different YouTube channels about wrestling and hear different accounts of fights happening. But really, it's one of those things to where, unless you're actually there or talk to somebody who was actually there, it's hard to get an account of what the true story is because, if A and B get into it, A is going to tell you what they say happened, and B tells you what they say happened. Well, if they give two different accounts, so obviously one of them's lying. So unless you're there, you don't really know exactly what happened and why it happened and how it happened. You just know that it happened. But Arn Anderson and Sid Vicious probably have the most famous fight that everybody talks about, but there have been numerous fights in WWE, back in the day in WCW, back in the day of ECW, NWA, any of those companies. There's going to be fights backstage because people are going to have something they don't like happen, and it's going to happen just like it happens in football and baseball and basketball and any other sport. My favorite pay per view of all time, if I had to pick one, Jordan, I don't know. That's a good question, man, because I've watched probably 17,468 of them. So it's hard to say without actually sitting down and thinking about it and taking time to go back and recant what happened on this pay per view and that pay per view because after a while, the years are starting to run together and the matches starting to run together. And you know that you watched the match, you just can't exactly remember when. And you know you saw the match, you just forget where you saw the match. But if I had to pick one, my all time favorite, probably just for the sake of being a young fanboy, would probably be the Royal Rumble from 1991. Only because when I watched that, I think I was about 9 years old, I believe. I know I was 6 when the 91 Rumble happened, but I didn't see it live. I believe I was 9. I think it was in 93, I believe, when there used to be an old video store right above where we were living at back then. And me and my sister and my mother lived with my grandparents. And every Saturday, my grandmother and my mother and my sister would go shopping, and they'd be gone all day long. So me and my grandpa would go to the local video store and rent wrestling back in those days, VHS tapes, and we rent 4 or 5 every Saturday and watch them from like 9 o'clock Saturday morning until about 9 o'clock Saturday night. And the first one that I watched that really got my attention and got me hooked on wrestling was that Rumble. So what happened that night really didn't matter. All that mattered to me was I found something that me and my papa could watch together, and we both enjoyed watching it. We both loved it. We both enjoyed it. We liked watching it and talking about it. And that Rumble got me hooked on wrestling. So, from a fanboy standpoint, despite what happened that night, it'll probably always be the 91 Rumble. But from an actual, as an adult, enjoyable standpoint, it would take a lot of time for me to know my all time favorite because of the fact I've seen so many. And now I've gone back and watched some from the mid 90s that I've already watched before, but it's been so long, I go back and watch them again. And no, Rohit Snoop Dogg is not part of WWE. And Jordan wants to know if I remember the Rock and Roll Wrestling. You talking about a promotion called Rock and Roll Wrestling? I know there was the Rock and Roll Express, but I don't recall a promotion called Rock and Roll Wrestling. Hey there, Master Kenobi. Glad to have you here. And Rohit, you are a Roman Reigns fan and a Bloodline fan. I was a Bloodline fan when the whole angle first started, but now it's gone way too long. In my opinion, the War Games they had last Saturday, that night, the loser of that match should have had to disband because now you've got two bloodlines. You've got the good side bloodline and the bad side bloodline. It's just gone way too long. There's no reason why a storyline should last this long. And it's not the storyline's bad because it's not. It's a good storyline, but it's like they're spending all their time focusing on this one storyline and they're forgetting about everybody else in the company. If they could make each storyline as good as the Bloodline storyline, they'd be fine. But they focus all their time and all their efforts into this one storyline that they have forgotten about the rest of the roster. So if this one storyline makes you forget about everybody else, then it needs to go away because they're doing some things right now that don't make sense because they're spending so much time focusing on the bloodline. And Jordan, anytime you got a question to me about a movie series, the answer is always going to be a big fat no, only because I'm not a big fan of movies. I'll watch 2 or 3 movies a year, maybe. I just can't sit still that long, ain't got time to, don't want to, and get bored too easy. I just can't sit back and watch movie after movie after movie. I just can't do it. I can watch 2, maybe 3 per year. So if there's a movie series, I'm not getting in on it because that means it's going to be 5, 6, 7 movies, and I don't have that much free time. So if it's a movie series, the answer is no because my attention span's about this long. And if I watch a movie, I have to be at home by myself to watch it. Because if I watch one with somebody, the moment they start talking, I'm done. If I got to hear you talk, I'm not watching a movie. If I got to watch a movie, I'm watching a movie. I'm not watching this to hear you talk. I'm watching this to watch this. So if I'm around somebody, I'm not watching a movie. But if I can be home by myself a couple hours, I'll watch one. But if it don't get good in the first 20 minutes and get my attention, I'm done with it. And once I check out, there's no going back. I'm done. So if I can get a couple hours at home by myself to watch one, I'll watch one. But after I watch one, that's about it. I'm not going past that. I've just never been a big movie person. I will watch them, but I don't watch a series. That's why I've never watched, the Star Trek and the Star Wars and the Final Fantasy and all that because they put out 900 of them, and I just don't have time to watch that many movies. But if you don't watch them all, they don't make sense. But I can't do that. That's why I don't watch weekly TV shows or daily TV shows like The Young and the Restless. It's been on forever. But every single episode is tied together. So unless you sit down and watch it every single day, you have no clue as to what's going on. And I just don't have enough free time to watch something every single day. That's why I love sports so much. Everything is different. So if you miss a game and watch it next day, no big deal. You miss a TV show one day, the next day you've got two. If you miss that one, then you got three. And I just never get caught up. But I'll be back again tonight talking some football. So all of you that like football, please come back tonight when we discuss some football. But let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. We asked a psychic if Santa was near. She detected his presence. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of three. Tell your friends and family